How are you, man?
Oh, making it work as much as we can.
Nice.
How are you doing?
Man, we're doing it. Hey, I got a beautiful day here. Want to welcome everybody to Pilsners on the Porch. Hanging out with my buddy Nick from Albright Grove Brewing and enjoying a delicious Keller beer. And so kind of just wanted to take this moment to, introduce you guys to Nick. Let him tell you a little bit about what's going on there at Albright.
Yeah, well, appreciate that. I'm gonna open up mine. This is our Keller beer.
Nice.
And so we opened up in August of last year. So we just hit the year mark, and it's been an interesting year. But I've been in the brewing industry for 16 years now. I was the pub brewmaster for Goose Island, Chicago for a while, consulting for a while, grew up here in Knoxville and just moved back and opened up this place. And it's been just a delight to be able to kind of share what we're doing. And a couple of things that kind of drove Brent and I together early on is the love of protecting what kind of special lands that we have and what watersheds that we have. And so that kind of really kickstarted a lot of the environmental aspect of local malting. And that's kind of what drove a lot of our initial conversations. So, this is an example of one that we used a lot of riverbend malt in, 100% riverbend malt in. And it's just been a pleasure being able to work with you, Brent.
Yeah, man, we've enjoyed it as well. For folks, so basically we're Riverbend's based in Asheville, but we've got several farmers sprinkled throughout Tennessee that we work with, both Teeter Farms and Walnut Grove. And Teeter Farms provided a 2-row barley that was used for this sort of special Tennessee Pilsner malt that went into the Keller beer. For those of you who know our product catalog, our traditional Pilsner has been 6-row based with the thoroughbred barley. And as 2 rows have become more and more available, we've gotten a chance to play with them. And so this is a fine example of a 2-row Pilsner malt going into a beautiful beer.
That was something interesting. Like, a lot of the stuff we were working with earlier was 6-row, which I never worked with 6-row prior to, because everything was always plumped 2 kernels that we've been getting from RAR or BSG or somewhere, much larger malting houses.
Yeah, it's been fun to explore the flavors of, we hadn't released a 2-row Pilsner malt to mass production just because we didn't want to cannibalize sales of the original Pilsner. So when some of these, opportunities to, do custom or small batch stuff or customers in Tennessee came around, it was really fun to play around with recipe dynamics, and just really stoked with how the malt came out. But yeah, we brewed this one. Was this right before the first round, right before COVID hit? Like, I feel like it was like we were setting it up for a spring release, right?
Yeah, it was in that vein. I can't remember exactly when it came out, but it was right around that time mark. It feels like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
6 months ago.
No doubt.
Yeah, I think it was early spring, so definitely at least February. It just was like we did 100% 4 malted Pils malt on it, a couple different German select hops, and really just try to let that malt shine. We ended up actually mashing really high, so our sac rest was, I think, 158 actually, so it was way on the top end, and try to leave behind as much residual sugars as we possibly could, or dextrins that we could be able to leave behind. And it gives it a nice rich body to it, even though it's only 4.5%. 4.4%.
Yeah.
And here's the color on it. And got like a nice golden hue, or not golden hue, just a straw color, just a little bit darker than bright straw.
Mm-hmm.
Just a subtle amount of haze, which is great because it's a Keller beer. So we actually didn't find this or do anything else with it. Just dropped the yeast and lagered for 4 weeks, and then we pulled it back out of there. And it's a beautiful, elegant beer.
Nice. Yeah, no, absolutely. I love how it turned out. Which lager yeast strain did you use for this one?
This was from Omega Yeast Labs. It was their Pilsner 1. I'm not sure exactly which heritage that came from, of Hofbrau or Von Stefan or one of those brands. I'm not really sure exactly.
Yeah.
But it's a nice, very German, crisp, clean lager yeast. Nice little subtle elements of sulfur in there, which is like perfect.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's I'm pretty sensitive to that, and I don't pick much up at all. Yeah. Well, so you strong lager presence, but I know you guys do a bunch of other. You play around in pretty much every major style category. Feel free to share some of the other stuff out of your portfolio there.
Yeah. So we do pretty good range. And so when I was at the Goose Island, I was in charge of both brew pubs, and so we had to come up with a brand new beer every week. I did that for a handful of years, and so kind of got to really kind of push my comfort range as far as like trying to try something out, and if it really sucked, that's okay. It was a pretty small batch; it disappeared fairly quickly. I think the one that stuck around the most was probably some mushroom beer that I made. I just never went away. But
it's tough to get that right.
Man.
Yeah, that's a hard flavor combination. But then in doing that, like kind of got a little more comfortable stepping out and trying some more aggressive IPAs, West Coast IPAs. We kind of generally brew a little bit more like what we want to drink, and that's usually where I start from. It's like, what do I want to see in a glass? What do I want to feel when I look at the beer, when I taste the beer? How's it roll around in my mouth? What's the aroma like? And it kind of starts with like, what do I want to drink? And that's usually kind of like, if I am wanting to drink it, maybe somebody else would like it.
Because all you're doing is freaking out, and I'm not
strong IPA as a given, but I've tasted English milds, Belgian stuff, a couple of different things from you guys.
Yeah, and then it's been fun to kind of be able to play around with. And a couple of the ones that we have, like we have a grisette that we are secondary fermenting in oak barrels right now. And that one actually uses a lot of that chip malt that you guys came out with recently. It's tasting great. Can't wait to see how that does once it gets fully conditioned up. But it's fun to be able to be able to broadly range as much as that we can. And we're actually just about to start doing some distribution statewide in Tennessee. Not the full state, but picking apart parts of East Tennessee and then slowly kind of growing toward the Nashville area. But we're kind of being much more heavy on cans since that's where all the traffic is right now.
Yeah, man. Definitely. Tell me, with the chip malt in the grisette style, is that just to sort of go back and give a little bit more residual body for another light ABV offering? Was that kind of the mindset there?
It's kind of that. It's also trying to leave food behind for the Brett. Saccharomyces, even when you sack rest at 158, 160 degrees, there's still a lot of sugars that they can assimilate and devour very quickly. So you're trying to find ways to leave food purposely behind for the Brett and PDO and other kind of lactic acid bacteria to use. And so that's kind of the part of using that chip malt, because it's pretty under-modified. And so it has a lot more in there, especially a lot of the proteins. And it has, my theory is, I don't know the exact science on it, but my theory is that the proteins are still bound a lot of those starchy endosperm pockets. Yep. And so it still locks it in, that really becomes difficult for the yeast to be able to get access to, because we aren't really going through a protein rest either. So there's still a lot of carryover to be able to get a lot of more food and texture for that Brett to start working on.
Right on. The chip malt thing was kind of sure, we'll give it a shot. But, I've been it's always interesting to see where our customers are taking it, whether it is, in a mixed culture kind of setup or we're talking about, getting that body tweak on a West Coast IPA. Very, very cool stuff. You mentioned kind of spreading out into in other parts of Tennessee, and I know. Why don't we cover the water quality projects and kind of where we're kind of heading with some of those collaborative efforts?
Yeah, and that's kind of like the new one we got coming up is with the North Chickamauga Creek Conservation, which is out of Chattanooga, and so that's a watershed that falls off the south side of Walden's Ridge, right through Saudi Daisy and into the Tennessee River through that channel, and it's a neat group. It's kind of self-serving. I got a lot of friends. I do a lot of whitewater kayaking, or I should say I did a lot of whitewater kayaking. Yeah. But it's kind of self-serving because a lot of friends are associated with that. but we're working with those guys, and it's going to make kind of a hazy IPA and use a lot of those really excellent streaker oats that you guys have. And be able to get like a nice, like silky mouthfeel without being rich or cloying, and leave that kind of like permanent haze in it. So it does a great job with it. And so, part of the project with that one, including the project that we're doing already with the Little River Watershed Association, that's a river that comes out of the Smoky Mountains and flows into the Tennessee River just outside of Knoxville. And the purpose of doing those, other than the fact that I love all the people who are involved with those, both of those are really outstanding stretches of whitewater, and both of them are really unique in the sense that they're really clean watersheds still. And so it's really trying to be able to still preserve those clean watersheds as best as we can. And so $1 of each 4-pack that we sell goes straight to their nonprofit to be able to create better awareness, get a little bit more energy behind, be able to create structural changes that can help improve the water quality of both of those rivers. And so they're just excellent projects that they're working on, things that we're really excited about. And, where it ties back into our early conversations with Malt is water quality.
Yep.
Yeah,
definitely. So, one of the things, so in my previous life, I was an environmental consultant. I worked on stream and wetland restoration projects all over North Carolina. And the thing with growing winter small grains, to me, where I saw some environmental benefit was just really to add some additional value to a cover cropping strategy that a lot of farmers were kind of already doing. For those of you who may not know, we grow winter grains with the exception of our malted corn. And so that means we're typically in what could be a fallow period, October to early spring. And so when we have, rye, wheat, barley, et cetera, in the fields as part of a crop rotation, you're minimizing erosion, and it's, that's a big deal. Sediment is the number one pollutant in most rivers. And so for us to kind of step in there and give some additional emphasis on, cover cropping and no-till and just a year-round crop rotation that benefits the soil is really an important piece of what we're doing. Most of the farmers we work with, we encourage them to use, observe some sort of a buffer along any waterways that might be near the farm, stuff like that, and minimize runoff from the nutrient pollutants like nitrogen and phosphorus. So, there's some of these things like that we really work hard to impress upon our growers that this is, something we believe in. And like you said, water quality is super important to manage it as development continues to encroach in these mountain ecosystems. So glad to play a small role in that part of things, and excited for these, these fundraising projects for the Watershed Alliances. I think they're doing great work, and it's definitely challenging, especially in times of COVID when they can't do proper fundraising efforts. Stuff like this is a great way to put some money back into their efforts. So you say a hazy IPA with streaker oats. Have you thought about the hops for that one yet?
Yeah, I think we're going to go with Citra Mosaic on that one, and just kind of leave it pretty citrus forward. It's very punchy, but sub 6% ABV. So make kind of a fun presence in a small package.
Right. Yeah. Nothing to knock you out.
Is Newfound Gap IPA. That's double dry hops, 7.2%. And that one's 100% Riverbend malt. So we use Base Camp as the primary driver, Stricker oats, and some of the Appalachian wheat. And it does just a great job of kind of leaving a nice permanent haze, but the finishing gravity on that thing is like 1.6. So it's real dry, but keeps a nice, rich, kind of like mouth feel to it, even though its finish is really crisp and clean at the same time.
Nice. Yeah, that's definitely where I lean with the hazier side of the IPA spectrum. Is just make it finish dry. I'm fine with juicy and all of those different flavor attributes, but it needs to just finish up. It just can't sit there like soup or oatmeal in your mouth there. So it's pretty wild. But yeah, man. Well, so tell us how, this is our first event for Craft Malt Week. And so I'm always kind of interested to see, like, how would you say your customers are they do they even know what malt is? Like, how are you kind of sharing the commitment to craft malt with them? And does it resonate, or how would you say it's landing?
So the way in which we kind of do this, usually it's like through like tours is a great way to do that. And that's a way that we can kind of get malt into people's hands, actually kind of like take it from the abstract, because when you talk about it and you don't really understand exactly what we're talking about, it's easy to get that glazed over look at people when you're talking to them.
Right.
And so being able to put it in their hands, especially be able to kind of walk them through, like, here's a base malt, here's a chocolate malt, here's, some caramelized malts. You'll kind of like show through it. But I think the kind of better segue is to kind of also talk about where is it coming from, and that's usually a pretty popular question. A lot of times in previous breweries, and certainly in ours, we still have some Byron malts and some English malts and other stuff. So it's like all over the world.
Sure.
It's nice to be able to kind of tie it back and be like, this was grown in Tennessee, this was grown in North Carolina. And what's really cool about that is, like, for the longest time, it was really hard to find anything that grew outside of the, breadbasket of the U.S. and Canada border, So,
absolutely.
It's awesome to be able to kind of put into motion a crop that people can grow here locally that we can actually use in the brew house, and it tastes good too. So that's like kind of the triple win. And so it's easy to kind of help pull that information back to people and get it into their hands and be able to kind of get into their flavors and just kind of put that in their mindset. I don't think it's a strong, like, deciding point. Kind of like, how like organic malt was a thing for a while, and then everyone realized that nobody really cared about it.
Yeah.
Moved on.
Yeah.
I think this is something that's going to last a lot longer. I think this is something that's going to be there for longer.
Yeah. I hope so. It's something where, connecting dots for folks, I think, really on a lot. If I find in a casual conversation, if I can keep the science kind of, here's the basic steps of malting, steeping, germinating, kilning, but then kind of zero in on that, that sourcing, that traceability piece. And that's really where the light bulb goes off for folks. And so it's, it's been an interesting conversation, so some days I'm kind of like, I thought we would be further along on this spectrum, there would be a broader acceptance of it across the marketplace, but every year it continues to show steady growth. So that's pretty much all you can ask for, really. And the customer is becoming more educated about it. I mean, it's it can't all be about hops all the time. So we take whatever opportunity we can to educate folks about the value of sourcing local. And so that's we do appreciate your help, because having taproom staff dialed in and understanding, what's actually in the glass is crucial, and it takes time, to educate so that it's not just a light beer and a dark beer on the tap wall. It's like there's a whole host of different, styles represented, ingredients from different countries and all of that. So yeah, kudos for doing the work to get your staff tuned up like that, because it does take time and effort for sure. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Like, it's definitely one of those things where I think it's kind of it helps drive a further talking point to get people more hooked into it. And I think, local is something that's, near and dear to my heart, and it's certainly something that's, like, I think a driving factor for a lot of people. I mean, obviously people are looking for local craft beer, so they've been trying to hunt down localer and localer and localer. It makes sense that they're becoming interested finally, like, what's all going into that glass. And so, hashtag farm glass.
That's it. There's many ways to spin it, but no, I think it's definitely a differentiating factor. I hope that it's a benefit as you kind of go down into that Chattanooga market and say, well, what's different about this IPA? Well, it's local malt sourced, and that actually is different. It's not just a different potpourri of hops in a different order. Like, it seems a substantial change, So, but yeah, well, tell us what you got kind of coming up for fall and early winter releases, man.
Yeah, we got a handful of projects. It feels like I'm just kind of like moving at warp speed at the moment, trying to pick up this new distribution role, and I got 2.5-year-old and a 3-month-old, so it's kind of keeping me busy in like every possible way. So I'm actually here in my backyard watching my 2.5-year-old run around.
Oh, dude, yeah.
But the projects we got for the beer side, so we have that Walden's Ridge IPA coming out. Hopefully it'll be able to get out, probably early November timeframe. And then we're looking at a couple barrel age releases. So we have a barrel aged Belgian style brown ale, and that we aged in Colombian rum barrels that we source. And
Ooh.
for those Colombian rum barrels, they're actually Jack Daniel's barrels from 1993. So they've used those barrels over and over and over again for 25 years before they finally shipped them back up to the States. And so we tasted great. It's got a nice, obviously the rummy quality to it, but the kind of banana Fosters, vanilla, kind of characters all running through it, coconut. So that one's coming out probably just after the beginning of November. Then we got the bread and butter of barrel aged world, Imperial Stout and Buffalo Trace barrels and bourbon barrels.
Nice.
So that one's coming out about the same time frame. And then we have that Grisette probably going to be able to make an appearance just before Christmas, I think.
Cool.
It's got a nice character, I think another month or so, and the oak, the Brett is really going to let it shine, and then bottle conditioning for about another month.
Right on. Cool. Okay, so that one is in bottles, not cans for the upcoming release.
Yeah, so all the barrel aged stuff is going to be bottles, which is just adding another interesting layer to packaging.
Yeah. Tons of space requirements and all of that. So, yeah, pretty wild stuff, man. Well, so where can people find your stuff, your beers? Obviously at the brewery in Knoxville, other distro points in the Knoxville market, and
yeah, I appreciate that. So we're a handful of markets or a handful of accounts around town in Knoxville only. So only in Knoxville for the time being. We're in like probably 48 different accounts.
Okay.
But a couple of like classic hits are like the Suttrie's High Gravity Tavern in the downtown area, which is a great spot to try to explore a bunch of different styles of beer.
Nice.
We're also in Trailhead Beer Market on the south side, which is another great beer market. So there's a couple good spots to be able to kind of get out, try some of the stuff that we have in cans. We're pretty spread around, a handful of different grocery accounts and liquor stores. So, definitely be able to get out and try to grab some, this nice, sweet, sexy packaging.
Yeah. Love it. I love it. Sweet, man. Yeah. Well, man, appreciate you taking some time, especially with having to keep an eye on the littles in the middle of the beery interview. So this was good fun, man.
Yeah, the beer is perfect right now. It's
oh man,
good segue.
78 degrees and sunny, perfect for Pilsners on the porch. So yeah, we'll be good, man, and we'll keep in touch. And appreciate everybody tuning in to check us out. And happy Craft Malt Week to one and all. And we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, looking forward to what else you guys got coming, and we'll keep this chain alive.
You bet, man. We'll talk to you soon, man. Thanks.
Cheers.